everyone, it's Alex here, healthhacksreview.com. So just wanted to shoot a review video here on the Vibeplate, and this is a whole body vibration machine. Just so you know, I do also sell a few different brands in this category, as well as 15 other product categories, so all kinds of modalities. You're welcome to reach out anytime on my website. You'll see in the description below, healthhacksreview.com. And so let's get right into it here. So Vibeplate's been around as a company for quite some time, and they also have done pretty well with getting a lot of different endorsements by all sorts of different sports teams, and some of them were featured on military-related, sports-related periodicals, things like that. So just want to show that here. Now, all that said, well, that's great, and lifetime warranty seems nice, and made in the USA, it's always nice as well. I'm not really a huge fan of the machine, depending on what the health goals are. And so in this video, I just kind of want to go over that this machine in particular is more limited in its scope of the types of benefits that you can get from it, okay? And that is also kind of something that you see a little bit more with lineal machines, and this is what that type of vibration is versus a pivotal or oscillatory machine. But we'll get into that in the video here, so hopefully you find it helpful, and if you have any questions, of course, you can send me a message or leave a comment below if you're finding this on YouTube. So you may find this interesting, but I actually am surprised, and surprised, not surprised, because I deal with many different industries or product categories, and now generally the job of doing comparisons and reviews is my job, okay? And I do that on many different websites. So the unusual thing about this particular product category is that this particular company took it upon themselves to actually review the competition. You just never see that, basically, like a company in the wellness category, I should say, or wellness industry, where they're going extensively to review the competition and talking about their competitors. So it's kind of unheard of. Some would say it's unprofessional, but I disagree, depending if you're done in a respectful and factual manner. So for example, in this case, they kind of did a lot of the work for me, and before you guys start to think like, well, maybe it's more biased in their favor, well, I would say that the source of their information, number one, is from third-party engineering firm reports. So independent third-party engineering firm testing, okay, of these competitors. The second is that when they make some claims, as you'll see below, they actually have citations, which is also refreshing. Citations to what? To whole body vibration, exercise science studies and research and books and all kinds of stuff. So that alone basically means that this particular company or website is providing better educational information about this type of modality or product than literally anybody. There is only a couple other websites on the internet where you can find even just like citations and science and stuff like that, and you'll see them talked about in this video. They're very expensive machines. They're great, kind of like gold standards, if you will, but it's pretty much unheard of when you roll onto any company site. So one thing I will say, by the way, before if you do end up becoming interested in this particular brand, Hypervibe, and we are going to get to the Vibeplate, you can find a discount coupon below in the description, that promo code. So here's the summation here when they're saying top 5 reasons over a Vibeplate: less head vibration, greater benefit, more powerful, clinically supported, better value. And really, we'll just actually go right down through this. Of course, you're welcome to read this on your own, but I may have a comment or two here I'm going to throw in. Again, I think this is just written so professionally, and this is, again, a very unusual situation where I can just literally go down one particular company's website. So less head vibration. This is something that actually you see
New visitor.
is not just about the Vibeplate, but any machine that is a lineal movement. So if you don't know anything about machines, they have two primary, most well studied types of movements of the thing you're standing on, the plate. And that is where the whole thing moves up and down like an elevator. So in the case of like a Vibeplate, this whole piece down here or this or whatever, they have multiple sizes. The whole thing moves up and down vertically all at the same time, okay? When you're dealing with a Hypervibe, or a pivotal, I should say, sorry, just a pivotal or oscillation machine, one side goes up and one side goes down, one side like a seesaw. So those are the two primary types of motion, okay? So we refer to as pivotal versus a lineal, okay? So this piece right here, less head vibration, basically because a machine like a Hypervibe or other, there's a lot of other pivotal motion types of machines out there, because it basically pushes one leg and one part of your pelvis or your hip up and the other down, kind of like climbing stairs or walking. Basically, your body is designed to move that way, right? You know, your trunk muscles, all kinds of stuff. You have impact, absorption in the joints. It's a normal movement. When the whole thing moves up and down vertically, where on earth, when you're walking around or standing on the floor, does the whole floor or earth move up and down at the same time, right? Maybe if you happen to be in a really bad earthquake, but outside of that, you know, it's just a movement that basically conducts the vibration, the lineal vibration, like with the Vibeplate and several other lineals. That vibration very easily tends to travel up through the body, and people really feel it in their head unless they hold a very specific posture. When I used to do testing, and I've had a lot of other people do testing at just different like gyms and commercial locations where we have lineals and pivotals and stuff like that, do all kinds of training. The most common reaction when somebody would stand on a lineal, just any lineal brand for that matter, and we had amongst, by the way, some of the best lineals on the market. So when they would, so basically when they would stand on a couple of the best lineals in the entire market, these are very expensive machines, they would immediately step off of them when they were turned on, or try to step in the center, or comment, "Oh my God, this is so uncomfortable." They did, most of the time, 95% of the time, they didn't like it. So you really have to bend your knees and really kind of, not a full squat or anything like that, but like even with absorbing as much vibration as you can by bending joints, it was just something that they didn't like. So for that reason, if you go to like places that are really all about commercial locations that are all about training, vibration training, usually for 85-90% of their customers or clients, they'll be actually training them with a pivotal machine. And I'll get into, there's other reasons for that, but one, because of comfort. They do still sometimes use lineals, but usually more for some types of disabled situations or certain types of injury rehab. It can sometimes be helpful. But anyways, so less head vibration. So pivotals really are nice and smooth, so to speak. They're really quite comfortable to stand on. So the next one is greater benefit. So this is an important one because there's a lot of different health benefits that are claimed, and I'm actually going to open the video right now to show you what some of those claims are. So you'll see on many different vibration machine websites, they talk about, they always talk about like all these different health benefits that you can achieve, right, with a machine. So like improved balance, increased circulation, increased flexibility, muscle relaxation, decreased lower back, increased functional strength, increased muscle size. Let's see if that's all the benefits. And there are other benefits beyond that, okay? But one thing to note is that, sorry about that, guys. One thing to note is that the motion of the machine, so lineal machines, that was the first motion, the first types of machines way back when, a long time ago. A lot of these were designed actually for like the space race to help with bone density and stuff like that for astronauts. So a long time ago. Then pivotal machines started to come out, okay, so a different type of movement. So then eventually there was single study, some meta-analysis as well of different studies, and they basically found that you can get greater muscle activation, circulation, and bone density with a pivotal machine over a lineal. Also decrease in back pain, loosens up the back, things like that, again, with a pivotal machine. Okay, so, and in these studies, by the way, and in the comparisons, they were actually looking at comparing like a gold standard, really, commercial grade pivotal to also like a gold standard lineal. So it just wasn't like a random cheap lineal. In fact, a point that is further down in this video is the fact that the lineal studies and research, these are like super high-end machines, super high G-force, very expensive. And, 90% of the lineal brands you find for consumers on the market, including Vibeplate, don't actually even meet those specifications that they used on those lineal machines in the studies. Okay. So anyways, pivotal is more that seesaw motion. So basically, as one side comes up under your leg and the other goes down, and vice versa, you're having a huge acceleration force behind it, and that really challenges the body a lot more. It really shakes up the lower back. It's more, the flushing and movement is almost more synonymous with a mini trampoline, as an example, okay? Versus, like, you ever see those foot massagers that just vibrate your feet? There's just like vibration foot massagers. That's almost more synonymous with a lineal machine, a lineal vibration machine, or like a Vibeplate. So just imagine your mind kind of, I'm trying to show you like how different, like a mini trampoline sort of effect versus like a foot buzzing massager. They're just kind of very, very different if you've never had a chance to stand on these different two types of machines. So remember, a Vibeplate is a lineal machine, okay? Now, a lot of people do actually pursue vibration machines for back pain and just helping loosen up the joints and stuff like that. And a pivotal can be fantastic. It's just utterly amazing for that. And hip stuff too, as well. But we never really have seen too much happening, as far as the evidence with lineals. Some people do different sorts of stretches like that. They use sorry about that, with the Vibeplate. Let's go to the shop here. So some people actually do functional stretches and movements with the Vibeplate. Let me give you an example. Like they might be twisting to the side there. They might be doing an exercise on it or whatever, right? But just keep in mind that when they're saying that they're getting those benefits with loosening up tissues and joints and stuff like that, 99% of the time that Vibeplate user is doing all sorts of different functional exercise movements. In other words, when we look at exercise physiology studies, doing those same movements and exercises gives you pretty much the same benefits that are claimed. In other words, there is no studies that show, okay, if I do this exercise on this Vibeplate and then I do the same exercise on the floor, on the ground, or with a chair or a bench or whatever, right? Okay, so just on the earth, what's the difference? There's not really like a back and forth comparison specifically with this. So we'll get back here. So here's some citations about blood flow, muscle oxygenation, neuromuscular response, which is this important thing to measure, where they can measure the activation of muscles with whole body vibration. And generally, if you're trying to build bone density and things like that, one of the most important features is G-force, and we'll get into that a little bit further down. So how much the degree of force that your body is exposed to and how it has to adapt. And so they get into that right here. One of the important things when you're comparing specifications with machines is actually assessing the G-force. And that directly impacts and affects how your body responds to that force with muscle activation, oxygen uptake, and even perceived exertion. A lot of these things are like synonymous with like basically exercise, carrying more weight on your back, lifting up a heavier muscle. That's also an increase in mass, correct? An increase in the mass of an object you might be working with or carrying, right? Same thing when we talk about the G-force of a plate or a machine. That is also increasing your mass as you respond to the force of the plate. Does that make sense? Okay, that's partly how these things work. So that's why you always want to make sure that you're pursuing a machine that has the minimum amount or recommended amount of force in like measured in G's that your body will adapt to, right? So if I told you like, okay, well going to the if the gym, okay, a gym is representative of Vibeplate, okay, of what a Vibeplate is. When you entered that gym, you go over to a machine to exercise on or a weight rack, and you'd find the maximum weight is like 5 pounds on a machine or a dumbbell rack. Now, how fit do you think you can get, or how much of a challenge long term if you're just throwing around or trying to move 5 pound weights, right? And if you walked into a different gym and that one is representative of Hypervibe, you might have a weight rack that goes to 100 pounds or machines that go to 100, 150 pounds. Vastly different, correct? It's very easy to roll into the gym that has a maximum of 5 pounds and throw that stuff around all day long. So same sort of thing. So like a Hypervibe, and not just this machine, there's a couple others that are much more expensive that basically have these higher G-force ranges. So that means your body has to respond to a lot more. So Vibeplate's response to people asking about G-force and other companies that are especially Lineal machines, or actually just other random cheap machines that are out there in general that I've found, sometimes the response will be that G-force doesn't matter, or something synonymous with some sort of response, you know, just basically downplaying it. But I just gave you a perfect analogy, honestly. Is it harder to carry in your hands and squat with 50 pounds? Or is it harder to squat and hold in your hands like a can of soup or a couple cans of soup that weighed like 3, 4 pounds? What's harder? Okay, you don't need to know anything about like biomechanics, exercise physiology, physics. You know, you can give me a whole mathematical formulation around it, and believe me, that level of engineering exists in this industry with these products. We have those types of facts too. But of course, you don't need to know all that, just if I give you that sort of analogy, right? So when you're like, well, duh, Alex, of course, like holding 50 pounds, it's like, okay, all right, well, what are the machines that are synonymous with carrying that huge amount of extra weight, right? Okay. So here's another interesting thing. A Canada study showed that the threshold for muscle activation, and you're like, what the heck? So if you don't know anything about exercise physiology science studies, so studying how the body responds to different types of exercise and movement, that's been studied for, you know, they've been doing those studies for 60, God knows how many years. So they have different electrodes that they can actually put onto your muscles specifically. So if they're trying to measure like muscle activation in your quad muscles, then they would put electrodes on your quad muscles, and then they would say, hey, okay, why don't you squat this weight that you're holding, or why don't you climb these stairs, or oh, you've been disabled, you know, in a wheelchair. Okay, let's run some tests on you. You get the idea. So there's all kinds of things they can test with muscle activation and how much of your muscle spindle fibers that you're actually activating. Some things will activate more. Some things will activate less, right? Okay. So they found in Canada, and this wasn't the only thing where they measure this, but that approximately 2 G-force, so that's double your body weight. So in other words, a plate that produces 2 Gs. They found that the threshold in order to actually activate your muscles in a context that would be considered like better than climbing stairs or whatever, is 2 Gs, specifically on a plate. So climbing stairs will absolutely activate muscles, obviously. Okay, some people get outwinded, right, climbing stairs, but they were looking at on plates, on vibration machines, what specs, what settings would it take, okay, to be perfectly clear. So it's a minimum of 2 Gs, okay? And anything below would not create any significant muscle activation. In other words, like what I said, you'd be better doing dips on the ground or climbing stairs or whatever, squatting, jumping jacks, jumping rope, all these things. Okay, why is that super important? Because right now, there's a lot of vibration machines on the market, a lot of brands that are under 2 Gs. I actually just reviewed one in another video you can see on my channel called Life Pro or Life Pro Fitness. They have a machine on there. They have 2 different, like, kind of models, and one of them was like 1.1 Gs, just to give you an example. So a friend of mine was asking, like, what do you think about this machine, Life Pro? And I'm like, well, it's 1.1 G, so will it help you possibly move a little bit of blood in your legs and maybe a little bit of lymph, versus sitting down not doing anything? Of course, yeah, probably will do that, and that's cool, people just want to get a little flushing action happening right in their legs or something. Yeah, I mean, it could work for that. If that person is, not having an active enough lifestyle, okay? But if you're looking for specific sort of benefits, like I showed you in that video before, as well as additional ones not shown in that video, then you have to pursue and find machines that have that vertical G-force that is definitely above 2 Gs, okay? So we then find that's the minimum, right? So we're just talking about minimums here, okay? So there is also higher ranges of G-force that give you other benefits, and that's talked about in this video here, which I would encourage you to take a look. It's just a 1-minute video. It's a good one. So like here we are from this second video you can find on the website, just mentioning, again, just from research studies and whatnot, there was some stuff that's saying a lot of benefits for elderly people using machines, up to 10 Gs. Up to 16 Gs, so a little bit higher, great for middle-aged people. 20 Gs in athletes, absolutely. Those people are beasts, right? They're bringing weights onto the machine, they're doing all kinds of crazy things. But again, we're talking like if you really want to challenge an athlete, okay, this is good. This is a good higher range of force for them to be subjected to. So this is in a stark contrast where basically a Vibeplate is really part of their customer base they do a lot of marketing to is a lot of sports and a lot of athletic related things. It could be CrossFit, showing you how to do different CrossFit exercises on the machine. So they're really pursuing a lot of like athletes and other people, but basically from this specific citation right here. And again, you can go look up those studies with athletes because there's a lot of them that have been done. Again, we're looking for higher G-force, okay, for greater muscle activation, greater nervous system recruitment, challenging the core stabilization muscles, better oxygenation, and just so forth. And if you have never tried, here's the other thing too, is like in this video, I'm trying to explain these things to you. Some people may be like, okay, it sounds more convincing or whatever. There's really nothing quite like personally being able to try a high G-force machine and like a Vibeplate, a Lineal, or just a low G-force machine. If you try them side by side, like I don't need to explain anything to you, really, truly, because you can experience it for yourself. And again, I'll go back to the analogy. It would just be like, do I need to explain to you why climbing the stairs, holding like a television or 100 pounds, or I don't know, whatever, think of whatever a child, 5 children trying to carry them up the stairs, something really heavy versus carrying like a flashlight up the stairs. Do I need to explain to you with science again and studies backing up the claims about why one of those would be harder? No. So it's the same thing. If you can try different machines like lineals versus pivotals, very different effect. And then especially high G-force versus low G-force. Yeah, I mean, you could do a half like chair pose, half squat on a high G-force pivotal, and man, your legs will start burning within 30, depending on the person, within 5 seconds. I'm pretty well trained, so I was going to say like probably take me like a couple minutes. But most people, it's like, whoa, really intense. On a low G-force machine, super easy. Now, some of you may be listening to this and be like, man, if I did like a half squat chair pose, on the ground, I'd already be feeling it, you know what I mean? But yeah, feeling it is really believing, honestly. When your body is subjected to those forces, it's obvious that one machine might be better than the other in terms of working your body. So, clinically supported. So there are over 800 scientific studies if you don't know about this. So while there is a lot of like BS machines out there, don't overlook that this type of modality actually is very, very well documented with science going way, way, way back. So we absolutely know how the body responds to these types of machines or this type of modality. Okay, so it's very, very well validated. Okay, in the third-party engineering firm report studies on a Vibeplate, um, it was a while ago I looked at it, but it was very, very low G-force. It may have been under 2, quite possibly. I'd have to go back and take a look. So it is very low G-force. They generally try to downplay that G-force is important. They say it's all about the frequency. And this is the important takeaway here that basically they're talking about right here. Okay. Do we have to, does there have to be clinical research backing every single brand of machine on the market? Like, is that required, is what I'm saying, to do your due diligence in order to figure out if you should maybe purchase something, or if one brand is better than the other, one model is better than the other? Of course not, and obviously that's never going to happen, that all these machines are going to spend a fortune doing all these studies, right, on their own machine. Okay, so then what's the next most important thing? The next most important thing to make the right decision, right purchase decision, is you look at the research studies, you look at what types of settings that they were using. Okay, so not just frequency, but also the amplitude, and you can learn about this on this website, the amplitude, and then also the G-force. Okay, so when you look at what settings were used, what exercises were performed, so on and so forth, right? How many times per week they were doing it in the study, you get the point. So you want to then pursue or purchase a machine that has similar, if not identical, or better settings, specifications that were used in the studies. And then, of course, also, you want to do, the exercise movements or whatever that they were doing in the research, right? You want to do it that week several times, or however long. Maybe it was a 15-minute session, maybe it was a 5-minute session. You get the idea, right? You're trying to recreate the same results for yourself or for your clients. Okay, so no, we don't say, well, Vibeplate doesn't have, extensive research studies. That's fine. So we just look at their specifications. And then again, we say, like, how did those compare to the machines used in the studies, right? So it's actually very straightforward, very simple from that standpoint. However, why it's challenging for the consumer is that basically nobody wants to pour through studies, so there are people that have done that research for you. Myself, there are absolutely other people. Hypervibe does have those papers and studies and things like that. They have third-party engineering firm reports. They have interviews on the website with a lot of like vibration experts talking about all these different relevant topics and educating people. So yeah, so that's what I would just tell you is you can absolutely still seek out and find that information. And honestly, think about it this way. If a particular vibration company is looking to sell you their machine and it's pricey, it's a few $1,000s, then they should also be willing to provide some references to you to any sort of relevant studies that would be, showing that, hey, their specifications on their machine are going to be close or better or whatever. So you should expect to see, the benefits that that particular vibration machine is claiming. So again, that's an important question to always ask when they're talking about health benefits with some particular brand of machine. Then you have to basically ask them to provide some sort of evidence that you will be able to get those benefits by using their machine. And then this is just a last little section here that is a nice little layout of pretty much all the mainstream. You have to kind of tilt your head, but these are all the mainstream companies that have been in the industry for some time selling their vibration machines. And it breaks it down by what their G-force range is and also what their price range is also. So the general correlation is that as you head towards higher G-force range, that's a lot more expensive to produce on an engineering level, so the price goes up. But the only exception, see those prices right here, 10,000 and 15,000, and they do go higher than that price-wise. But that price range right there, why this is a good slide or graph to look at is because Hypervibe's machines actually get up to right in here, right up to a maximum of 17 Gs, except it's not $15,000, it's closer to like 4,000. So it's actually a tremendous, tremendous value. So they have their machines right in this range, but for a fraction of the cost. They do also have a custom made to order machine, the Galaxy, which actually goes higher than this range as well. And I think that one is around $10,000. But if you need something also stronger for commercial uses with athletes and you want to go even higher, then there is something that does go higher that Hypervibe actually produces, but that's a special order. So if you have any questions about this, you can find me on healthhacksreview.com, my website below, and again, look out for that promo coupon as well for the Hypervibe.